Hi guys, and welcome to my Werewolf build for the Murkmire DLC for the Stamina Sorcerer. In the last patch, the Wolf Hunter patch, there were some major issues with the werewolf that prevented me from developing a PvP build. And also there were lots of bugs with the major defile debuff, which I will also explain later. Essentially, the bug was that the Savage Strength passive from the Werewolf didn't work. So, despite having the extra 10k resistances on your character sheet, you didn't get the mitigation provided by it. Which basically meant that against attacks like Dawnbreaker or poison attacks, you basically were naked as a werewolf. And that made it unplayable in a PvP environment. In PvE, with mechanics and stuff like that being pretty, well, predictable, it wasn't that much of a problem. You still were squishy, but it was manageable. But in PvP it was pointless trying it. So I used 3 months to work on another characters, grind it up, get all the points, and what I cooked up is working pretty well so far. Here you can see two Stamina Sorcerers trying to ambush me from behind. They seem to be a bit surprised about the werewolf. Bet they haven't seen that in a long time over there in PvP. Anyway, another thing what they changed in this Murkmire patch was the reliability of enchants, and that shields are critable and armor penetration values actually increase the damage versus shields as well, meaning that the Lover Mundus Stone is a lot more desirable in PvP than it previously was on the werewolf. Also, the werewolf heals are now scale of your max health, which means that you are able to dump the Pelinal's Aptitude on the werewolf build, which opens a whole new array of possibilities. Also, because shields can actually crit now, the Khajiit race in PvP is working a lot better than it previously did. Essentially, on this build, which I basically started working on as soon as I noticed that there was a huge amount of healers and tanks in PvP, since the defile was broken again, they had a lot easier time surviving. So what I basically cooked up was something which actually melts healers and tanks. I literally haven't met a healer or tank which we haven't been able to kill with this setup, because no matter how tanky you are, if you can't heal yourself, you'll die sooner or later. And the werewolf's high pressure, well, assists with that. So what I did was I combined the Cleave major defile debuff provided by Claws of Anguish with a minor defile set. First I was thinking about Turbo Kun, a set that you can get, I think, in Scale Caller, one of those DLC dungeons, but the stationary proc of this monster set, I didn't like it too much, so I went with Fazalla's Guile, which puts a minor defile on everyone in like a 6 meter radius around you. Essentially, if you stack those two buffs, you can hit them with a 66% reduced healing, which also affects health regen balls, like chalking. Essentially, they can't heal themselves at all, which is very nice. What I also did was I jacked up my armor penetration values, since shields actually take more damage that way, and now switched to Howl of to Deafening Roar, which puts the major fracture debuff on 6 targets around you, which is very nice. It's also very nice in assisting your group members in doing extra damage against people. The guards were buffed a bit, so in PvP in this patch you'll probably have to be a lot more careful with the guards. The negates, they do mess you up. It is pretty nasty sometimes. Despite dumping Pelinal Aptitude, my heals have stayed the same. Due to other measures, my heals are like 9.3. I think I had like a 15k crit heal sometime. So the tankiness provided by Chudon makes you very, very tanky in werewolf form. You do a lot of damage and you basically cut off their heals completely. Unless they kite like crazy, a reason why I usually try avoiding fighting Stamblades and towers, there's no way they can tank that damage for a long period of time. And with the magic absorb enchant on our offhand, we actually have a very reliable method of getting back magicka on this build. It's like an extra 500-ish extra magicka recovery on top of your magicka regen and constitution. The nice thing what I noticed that even when people wear Earth Gore, if you put the Define on them, they can stand in it and the health will not go up. Because the set was irritating me, to be honest. Pets were also buffed, the werewolf pets. They inherit your crit resistance, which is very nice. They survive a lot more than they previously did. And if you get them low, the implosion procs. The implosion skills of your max health, so yeah, I have had like 11k implosion crits on people in PvP with this setup. It is pretty nasty. As a Mindstone, we use the Lover for the extra spell and physical penetration. I used to run the Warrior, but since our heals no longer scale up our spell damage in werewolf form, I can switch to something which provides more damage. As a buff food, we use the Dubious Command Throne, which procs our Bone Pirate. It's a very nice set. I used to run Salvation, but on a Stamp Sork you get a reduced ultimate cost, so I no longer need it. Here are the potions that I like using, the recipes on the side in yellow, if you're interested. That's one of the potions I like especially, the Essence of Lingering Health. It gives you minor protection, major vitality. It is very good if you're taking high constant amounts of damage. For example, Siege. If you have to go through that meat bag death zone, that will probably help you survive a lot. Essence of Speed. Despite the major expedition duration being nerfed, it is still very nice to have, especially when you're trying to get away. Since the Werewolf doesn't have a snare removal, I always try and have a few of these speed pots with me. Weapon damage pots, also very nice, especially when you're trying to kill that pesky healer in the back who is just spamming Breath of Life and doing no damage. Detection pots also highly recommendable. Here's my human skill setup. I try using Shrouded Daggers as a spammable. It hits 3 targets and slows them down. You can also use the Crushing Weapons from the Psychic skill line if you have it. It's kind of hard to use in PvP. I don't really like it that much. We use Hurricane to proc our Crit Surge, Bound Armaments to get that extra stamina recovery and the max stam on the front bar. This is the flex spot, which you can use with anything you like. You can use Quick Cloak, Rendering Slashes, even Flurry as far as I'm concerned. I don't like it, but maybe you do. The Quick Cloak is very nice if you're running around solo. If you're in groups, take Steel Tornado and put a negate on the back bar. Also, if you're in groups, you can switch out the second Mighty Chewed armor piece and put on a Domni House piece to increase your max stamina and your max magicka. On our back bar we use Fort Momentum, Classic, Ball of Lightning to escape, Carve for the minor heroism, which increases your ultimate recovery by like 33% effectively. Crit Surge and Dark Deal standard, nothing special here. On the back bar, as I said, use the Psychic ult, or if you're in a group, I also recommend running a negate. Here, the skills we use in Werewolf form are Claws of Anguish, which reduces their healing received by 44% and also their health recovery, Deafening Roar, which puts major fracture on them, Feral Pounce, and Hasine's Rage to get the major brutality. To our armor setup, we use Bone Pirate, 5 pieces, with 1 piece on your armor, jewelry and 1 weapon. to get the 511 on our front bar, which means more max stats. Also on our front bar we have Fazala's Guile, a set which gives you 2 times max health, extra healing receive, and basically the minor defile. Enchanted with the weapon damage enchantment on our offhand, we use a infused dagger with an absorb magicka, as I mentioned. This procs around every 2 seconds, very reliable, and I'm pretty sure I saw my pets proccing it as well, so highly recommendable. You won't have any magicka problems if you do that. As a monster set we use 2 times Mighty Chudan. As I previously mentioned, if you're in a group with a warden nearby, you can switch the shoulder out for a dummy house shoulder. I only recommend doing it though if you're really sure that he keeps it up 100%. We use 4 times Fazala's Guile on our armor pieces, all in impenetrable, and waste all the hands of the bone pirate. The jewelry, I use Triune on the jewelry. You can avoid that by enchanting all your big armor pieces with prismatic glyphs and only the neck with Triune. Just make sure you have 4 essentially prismatic glyphs on your armor. And the jewelry you enchant it with weapon damage enchantments. To the CP, there's nothing really that I changed here that much. I took all the points out of Tankiness and put them into Tenacity, since we don't have the other morph of Howl of Despair. I think it's called Rousing Roar. We have to increase our stamina return from heavy attacks a bit. We increase our Befoul CP to increase the effectivity of our major and minor defile. I took a bit of a CP out of the Blessed, since the spell precision was nerfed a bit. I only want the Vengeance passive. And here I put a lot more points under Piercing. Previous patch I put most of the always 11% on the Chef Fracture to the CP, which increases damage versus shields, but since shields actually get affected by armor penetration, it makes more sense putting them under Piercing now. The red CP, that's a matter of taste. You can do it how you want, essentially. That's what works best for me at the moment. Usually when I'm alone, I run the double Chudan setup, but if I'm in a group, I change out the back bar Sigil for a negate and the quick cloak for the steel tornado AoE execute. If you use the werewolf CC, try using it after you get stunned to reduce the stamina cost by 80%. It does cost a lot in heavy armor. It's like 3.8k stamina. You can save yourself a lot of resources that way. The setup works very well in small groups. In big groups you can do pretty much what you want. It's very nice for suppressing healers and tanks. The Fazala's Guile in combination with the Claws of Anguish really give them a hard time. Just make sure to reapply the debuff after they cleanse it, because they always try it. You can force them to waste a lot of magicka that way. But do it carefully, because it also drains your stamina a bit. If I'm running in coordinated groups, I use my werewolf mostly in smaller actions, like in 3 versus 3s or 3 versus 5s. If we're running up against shittier odds, I usually prefer using the negate instead, since with the carve on our back bar we have a pretty decent ultimate regeneration, which enables us to use the negate in very regular intervals. Just make sure to keep your Claws of Anguish up at all times. Spread that defile on as many targets as possible. only important thing which you have to know on this build is that the only thing what will give you a very hard time are standard Night Blades, since they can reset the fight as often as they like. Any other classes I don't have too much problems with, class-wise. That's a standard Night Blade, being a standard Night Blade. I mean, some people would call it a carry class. It's just one thing they do. You have to expect it. If you're fighting against Stun Blades, though, I can recommend using detection bots, though. Also, if the enemy player isn't experienced, the werewolf pets will make it hard for him to target you directly. And since the werewolf pets are actually pretty tanky this patch, they can take a lot of damage, and they auto-respawn after 10 seconds, so it's not that much of a problem if they die. If you're running in bigger groups and are like defending keeps or something like that, what I advise you to do is basically keep up that defile on them. At that point, you defiling them is more important than doing damage, because things like siege will really mess them up, because they can't heal. The burst combo that you should try and using is the Howl of Despair, Heavy Attack, Howl of Agony, Light Attack, Claws of Anguish combo. It is tricky to land, but if it lands, it hurts a lot. So I hope you liked the build video. If you have any questions, just ask in the comments. Yeah, peace out.